Welcome, everyone, and thank you, Keely, for joining us to talk about body language. And I know your time is precious. I know you've got loads of going on at the moment. So for those who don't know, Keely is an empowerment coach based in Torquay, normally when she's not in Liverpool. And I met Keely at a retreat in Ireland about 6 months ago, and she really inspired me, and she still does, and it made absolute sense to invite her today to talk to us about body language, because she's so amazing. So Keely, tell us more about you, my lovely.
Oh, well, thank you for the glowing start and like no pressure whatsoever. So I will own up and say right now, I have a habit of going off on a tangent. And just before coming onto this, I was like, oh, actually, maybe I could add in a bit of this. So I'll go with the flow. There's some kind of slides I've put together that will just be a little bit more kind of not just about body language, but how you can convert that sale. So ultimately, body language for me has been like a phenomenal, like just life changing. And I know that sounds really extreme, but to understand body language, you can literally read people, kind of you look at people and they're talking, and I'm looking at them and I'm thinking that person's not engaged. Like you should really just stop talking. You can look at other people's conversations and think, just stop. Like you're embarrassing yourself now because they're not picking up on like the body language. Now, I don't say that and I keep that to myself, but it's only because I now understand body language. So when I'm stood talking to somebody in a very direct way, or not network marketing, networking in general, you can kind of just read the situation and read them to kind of just gauge where you want the conversation to go, or if you should absolutely stop. So I'm going to try and share my screen. Let's see how successful this may or may not be. It's not death by PowerPoint, but hopefully. So obviously we are here today under the wonderful Athens Build Your Confidence, and a little bit about me. So I am a mum to two. So Liliana is 12 and Jude is 2. Yes, there's an absolutely massive difference in age between them, and that's because life was really hard becoming a mum. Like, I'm not going to lie, that transition into motherhood taught me probably one of the biggest lessons ever, that change in identity, that change in the dynamics of relationships and my whole emotional well-being. Over the years, past 14, 15 years, serial entrepreneur, just lots of diverse business ventures. I did say network marketing before. That's where the whole kind of adventure into personal development and things like body language come in. Used to kind of work corporate sales, done very well in that department, and kind of coming, I suppose, towards more recent years and the end of COVID, I was like, I'm just done. Like, I am done with the rat race. And that's kind of where I set up I Am More Academy. So I'm an award-winning empowerment coach and mentor. I also co-run a charity called the Last Kiss Foundation, and we support families who have lost a baby through stillbirth, miscarriage, or neonatal death. So we've been running that for nearly 9 years this year. And the aspects of kind of learning about the bereavement side and the grief process, for me, it's really important because we can have grief about changing jobs. We can have grief and loss when we move to a different home, even. It doesn't have to be that somebody literally passes away. So that's quite nice to bring into kind of the coaching that I do. Survivor of childhood trauma, my upbringing is the foundations to my entire life and where I am now. So in a very, very short snippet, my mum was a drug addict. And if anyone understands addiction, it's kind of the neglect, the poverty, the everything else that comes with it, including crime, etc. So all of that just made me feel like I could give back to other people. And so it was really important for me to have kind of a two-prong approach to my business, which is where absolutely I go into schools, I work with young adults, I teach a lot of them about kind of life skills and resilience and tenacity, but also that it's just okay to be you, to be your unique self, and own your story, own your narrative, and use that as your strength. I'm not going to read the different bits and bobs at the bottom, but Next week, I fly out to New
New
York,
York.
and I will be on a TV show explaining a bit more about my business and my life, on a TV show that goes out to 2.8 million people across New York and New Jersey, which is just madness. Um, Yesterday, I know I won't go into it now, but yesterday I did meet Stephen Bartlett. I did pitch to him, and I absolutely got what I wanted. And it was just mind blowing, literally mind blowing. And I
I'll
did
ask you a
send
question
Alvin.
about that one at the end, Keely, because
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
I
that's
want to
cool.
know more.
Alvin and the group got a video of me looking kind of very blurry eyed after a bottle of champagne, because I was just went to the bar and I was like, I want champagne. I need to celebrate this moment and live in it. So yeah, all of these different core foundational stuff that I've done and experienced has just led me to where I am today. So this is my little family. It's a little bit out of date, to be fair, but my husband Steve, my dog Charlie, and I've got another dog called Rolo, who's British Bulldog, and my two children who are looking a little bit younger. And that's just very much me. My feet on the ground, quite humble in my life and everything else, but at the same time, a go-getter. So body language, I don't know what you can see. Mine's a little bit blurred on this one, but ultimately, everyone will know that body language is just that non-verbal way to read people. And to know that kind of, it says 55% here, but I feel like it's a little bit more than that. But, you know, to look at somebody and kind of feel like you know what they're saying without them even saying it is so, so powerful. And that's why I just love this topic. So before we get started, here's just some kind of stuff that goes with body language. So for me, I was feeling like the confidence, the body language, people, sales, business, all kind of merges into one. And so slides together before. So the 5 rules of success: see more people. And Chris literally just brought this in because number one, don't judge. Like, you literally could be, I don't think that's my ideal client. Like, they're not going to bring anything to the table. But actually, just as you've joined this today and then said to Jordan, come speak to me after, because actually I know somebody. Nudge, you just don't know who they may know. And then number 2, see more people. Ultimately, it's the volume of the conversations. The whole way to success is how many people can you speak to. Number 3, see more people. But when you see more people, own your story, own your narrative. You know, it's not about giving them a big blurb about you and your life and your journey. It's about what can you give them that's impactful, that when you walk away, they can remember. And again, if we talk about like body language in that kind of moment, is there something that you could wear or have or highlight on yourself that they can remember? Because it might be, oh, I can't remember that girl's name. She was saying about blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah, I don't really remember what her story was or what she does for business, but actually, she had a big bandage on her big toe. So, yesterday, going to Stephen Bartlett, for me, shoes are really important. And I've ripped my big toenail, and my other 2 toes down is broke. And there was no way. I even bought a pair of shoes a size bigger in the hope that I could get my feet in them and just kind of go along. But it's so, so sore. So I thought, well, what statement can I make? Because I was devastated that I was going in a pair of flat sandals. And so I got a big bandage and I literally put it round my big toe. So it stood out like a sore thumb, literally. And that actually sparked a conversation when I then went to the bar, because this guy was like, you've been successful, blah, blah, blah. And he went, I noticed the toe. And it was just a point of conversation. So, you know, what can you kind of do to stand out when you're telling your story? Is there like something you could make it quite powerful and punchy to tell your story?
It's about
And the
being
next one,
you at the end of the day. Sorry.
sorry,
It's
it's
about
okay.
being you and the way you are at that moment. It's not about being someone else or trying to be someone else. Our body needs to express who we are.
Yes, yeah. But a statement piece does help. Something that just, you know, can be remembered for sure. And the law of averages really is just kind of the more people that you can talk to, naturally, the more sales you're going to get. And the improve your averages, there's like ratios, you can build up ratios. So depending on what you're doing. So like Jordan, I'll just take you as an example, knowing that you want the internship. Well, even Stephen Bartlett last night is kind of like, when I ask people, well, if that's what you want, how are you going to get it? and somebody in the back room had said, oh, I've sent 2 emails. Well, you're not going to get very far with 2 emails. But if you sent 100 emails, the chances are somebody will respond to that, because there's a law of averages. And if you can send 100 emails and know that you get 1 response, then you know you send 200 emails, you're going to get 2 responses, because the law of averages will never fail. And so improving your average. So for me, when I was quite competitive in sales, it was more of a, okay, how many people do I need to speak to get this over the line? And I think I got my kind of conversion rate down to, if I was in front of 2.63 people, which obviously will go with 3 people. So for every 3 people I was in front of, I knew I could convert that into a sale. So I knew being in a room with X amount and having X amount of conversations, it's good to track that information, because when you go to different events or different things, if you know where you stand and how many people you need to be in front of, you're naturally going to kind of benefit that.
Yeah.
How to get a yes. For me, going into a networking event, all of these different things just help with that confidence, not just your body and what that's portraying, but melt the ice. How can you go in with that kind of rapport building? That rapport building, people don't remember what you say, they remember how you make them feel. And that is so key, because we've got 2 of these and 1 of these. And it's kind of along the lines of, for me, people will remember you when you barely say anything. So when I say share your story and get in front of people, it's not for you to really talk, it's for you to listen. And then at the end of the conversation, they'll go, oh my God, I've literally just spoke about me this whole time. Let's grab a coffee. Let's jump on a Zoom. I'd love to know what you're doing. If you can have a conversation and get to the end of that conversation and not actually spoke about you to a certain degree, the chances are you're going to be able to get that kind of second touch point with them. But when you are talking to them, and if you are taking on all of that information, you'll find their hot button. What button can you press so you're going to get them on board? That's just really, really, really important. And this is what I love, actually, to be honest. When I talk about my coaching, it's like, what do you do? I find your button and I absolutely press it. And honestly, a few friends of mine will send me like a GIF on my phone, and it's just a big red button and a finger pointing and pressing it, because it's like, okay, you've got me. And yeah, and get a commitment. Get a commitment. Oh, a commitment. Yeah. I'm just questioning my own language. It's all right. So how do you do it? So find that button, and then a commitment from them, kind of to have that second touch point, whether it's the LinkedIn connections, whether it's the Zoom meeting, or whatever it may be. It's always about you being in control and prepping for that next touch point. So I've said touch point a couple of times. And in any kind of sales and any kind of business, there can be anything between 7 and 21 touch points that a person needs to convert the sale. So when you're finding them on LinkedIn and they've become a connection, you could drop them a voice note and just kind of reiterate, really lovely to connect. Thanks for meeting me today, whatever it may be. That is actually a touch point. So commenting on their stuff is touch points. And that kind of a minimum of 7 is usually what it takes to get people over the line. So it's also a good kind of a way to track. So why people buy. So when you are in business, and I do apologize if I'm kind of teaching people to suck eggs here completely, but you kind of need that hot button. So when it's kind of about that hot button, it is, do they need more money? Is it actually the financial freedom they're looking for? Do they just want more time? Because at the end of the day, that's the most expensive commodity in the world, isn't it? Is it just that they want to be a better person? For me, when I'm doing coaching, it's like life balance, success, and self-mastery. They're key things for me. But within the life balance, I'm saying about more time. Within the success, it's totally personal development. It's the helping others, because I'm sure you've got a business that supports other humans, It's creating that extra income, because if you can do that inner work, you're going to naturally get more sales. And then the self-mastery just being that onward next level journey that you're forever going on. So it's trying to find that real important reason that that person's in front of you. And these questions have been quite fundamental to me, because, again, it just helps you identify that hot button. So asking them, what is your number 1 priority in life? They're going to tell you. And then you could just be like, just interested, like, why did you pick that? So it could be, let's just say extra income, because that's quite standard. Well, why did you pick that? Well, because there's never enough money and, we're in a financial crisis and blah, blah, blah. Okay, but why is it important to you? Well, I want to be able to provide for my children. Oh, okay. Okay, so what are the consequences of you not having that extra money? Well, I don't want my kids to starve and I don't want to be going to food banks and I don't want to be, you're getting all of these hot buttons come out in like liquid form, delivering to you. And then it's just then using whatever it is that you do to convert that into a further conversation. So those questions have been really quite fundamental when I'm in networking and when I'm just meeting new people. So the basics of body language. So I'll tell you a very quick story. And it's not like about ego or anything else. But when I first learned about body language and the power of body language, I literally went to an event and I sat maybe 5, 6 rows back. It was a room of probably about 50, 60 people, I'd say, in the room. And the person at the front of the room was a very influential guy. He earned kind of 40 grand a month through his business, like passive income kind of business. And I didn't say a word. I sat in my chair. I didn't say a single word. And based on the fact that obviously the bottom half of my body was covered by other people sat around me, and I just used some simple body language to get his attention. And by the break, he come up to me and asked me if I want to go for a drink. And for me, that just highlighted the true power of body language. So in a real simple terms, like your hands are quite key, and I'm quite a, hands, jazz hands everywhere. Yeah, so your palms can say a lot. So for example, if you could imagine being arrested by a police officer, and let's just say you're innocent. And even then, when I'm doing it, I've just done it subconsciously. And I think that's the whole thing about body language, isn't it? That's subconscious. Oh my God, it wasn't me. It's kind of that, submissive. It wasn't me, the truth, kind of when you're reading children and it's like, I didn't do it. And their body language, 9 times out of 10, it's kind of the hands up and, kind of I'm being submissive. I'm telling the truth. And then the hands down kind of can be more of a dominant. Now, I wouldn't read too much into that, but the finger pointer one's really interesting because with my kids or any situation, they get the finger. I don't say a word. They literally get the finger. And it's quite funny because that's quite aggressive. So even though I've not said anything, I've not done anything, they literally get look and the finger. And it's that kind of can be quite aggressive to people. But the handshake for everybody, and I think women is very different sometimes. I think it can be seen as quite a dominant male thing to give somebody a handshake. I mean, Albin, I don't know about you. Do you go into networking? Are you a handshaker? Like, is that something you do?
Not with women. We tend to kind of smile, get close to each other. If it's a guy, maybe I'd be more likely to do a handshake. But if it's a female group, we just say hello to each other. Like when I first met Kirsty, it was just like, oh hi, and no, it was softer, I suppose.
Very feminine.
Yeah.
But how do you think it would be? So, okay, let's just say, and maybe, Kirsty could kind of let us know, but let's just say when you first met Kirsty, was it a networking event?
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you first met Kirsty, naturally you'd be like, oh, hello, make small talk. Like, you've kind of built that rapport, melted the ice, and you've had a conversation, exchanged what you both do. Now, let's say you got to the end of the meeting, but actually you'd agreed to connect in another way, or you've committed to something. Now, it doesn't have to be big. It could be something very, very small. How powerful would it be for you to then put your hand out to shake her hand? Now, it might feel weird, but how much power does that give you and authority, even as a woman, to
Yeah.
you're basically kind of making like a business exchange. It's that commitment to each other.
Yeah.
And even so give it a try. Literally give it a try. When you're next at an event, it doesn't have to be a real dominant kind of, squeeze, hand squeeze. It can be very gentle. It can be very feminine in that way. But as a woman, I will finish my communications with a handshake.
I like that.
Not always in the right situation. You wouldn't literally do it to everybody you meet at a networking event. But if there was some kind of commitment between you, It'd be like, oh my God. And someone won't not shake your hand, but you've just
Mm.
made that commitment to each other and that authority there as like a business person. And when you go in to do a handshake, it is so important to go in equal, literally 50-50. And it was when I was at a school, there was two boys, they were friends, they were playing up in the class, and the teacher was like, apologize. And he was like, I'm not apologizing. He put his hand out to shake his mate's hand. And when he did it, he completely turned his friend's hand over and he like dominated him. And I happened to be stood there at the time. And I was like, did you just see what happened then? And he was like, no. I said, obviously he was going to apologize. I said, but actually he doesn't respect you because he's just completely dominated you. And like as if I'm not apologizing to you and I own you. And the whole class went silent and was listening. And the teacher was like, wow, what do you mean? Can you explain? And we were having this conversation. I said, if he respected you, you would very much be 50-50 going in together. So if somebody goes to handshake you and turns your hand, it's because they're trying to tell you that they're more powerful than you, that they own you, that they've, I am the boss. So even if they go in and turn it, you absolutely turn it back, make it equal and give a firm handshake. Because yeah, if you go and watch politics or anything, sometimes, the dynamics within a handshake is very interesting because even if it's a handshake and they're putting their hand on the top, again, it's like, no, I'm the boss. Handshake screams so much.
Yeah.
And a smile. As a human, I think it's like the most non-threatening thing you can do. And as much as me, I might kind of come across as really confident, but going into a networking event scares the living daylights out of me. Like, it's like, oh God. And I walk in the door and I'm like, okay, breathe, compose myself. But I make sure I walk in the door with my shoulders back, my chin up, a big smile. Obviously, you don't want to look really weird, but kind of I'm going in and it's like, okay, I'm here. I've entered the room, kind of instead of looking down or having your phone or whatever other tactic. And then I look at the room. Who is it I want to actually address? Who is it I want to see? Because when you're smiling, you will attract people to you.
Mm.
People will be attracted to you. They'll want to be in your space. They will want to kind of communicate in whatever way and dress for success. So I went over to Vegas. I went to this big seminar and like the biggest kind of people in the world, Robert Kiyosaki, Tony Robbins, Richard Branson, like so many people were there. But at one point, they got 10 people, I think it was, or 5 people, a number of people on the stage randomly from the audience. And they asked them, they asked the audience, well, what job do you think they do based on the clothing that they were wearing? And so lots of people were just firing out different things, just random stuff. And then they said, I want you to go away, come back the next day. Obviously, a lot of people had traveled. So they said, you're going to be limited to what you can wear, but just put on your best clothing and come back tomorrow. And those exact same people went back on the stage in their different attire. And then the level of job, the kind of, oh, instead of it, oh, you just look like a mum on the school run. Okay, it wasn't quite that rude, but it like you just look like a stay-at-home mum or whatever, compared to, oh, maybe you're like in law or you're a solicitor or maybe you do this or that perspective of just something that you're wearing. And if you put on a suit jacket, you carry yourself a whole lot different. Your shoulders are back. I'm not saying you have to wear a suit jacket, but a blazer, whatever, you literally, your body will hold itself completely different. And a huge one is shoes. And I'm not saying go out and buy £500 shoes or whatever, because I absolutely do not. But shoes are so important, which is why I thought, I can't believe I can't wear shoes to Stephen Bartlett. Like, I cannot believe that. And that's why I made a big statement with a bandage around my toe to make a point. But yeah, so shoes are really important. And actually, Chris, I don't know what shoes you wear, and I won't ask you to show your shoes, but I judge a man by his shoes every time, every day.
Me
I'm
too.
very happy to share my shoes.
Sorry?
I'm very happy to share my shoes. One of my pet
Okay.
hobbies is polishing shoes.
Hey.
Okay, there we go.
I'm in my house right now, so I'm wearing my slippers. But if you want, I'll go and get my best shoes. I'll show you.
But shoes are so important. They say so much about a person. What can they be bothered with? What are they? So, Chris, I'm talking you up here right now. You polish your shoes, you're going to do other small stuff that really matter, and that is huge within business, with relationships. this might make me sound like a snob, and I am happily married, but I would not go near a man in trainers. Like, that is not my type of bloke. Not interested. I'm not saying don't ever wear trainers, but in the right situation and setting and going into business, it's take it with a pinch of salt, but do just be mindful about that clothing, because it speaks volumes about not just the way you carry yourself, but how people perceive you. And when you go into a room, so, okay, the best way I can think about it is, I'm sure most people have kind of walked into an office, whether it's like a school teacher's office, whether it's a business office, and that desk is going to be at the back of the room. That desk is going to be where the seat, you can't walk behind that person's seat, because that is the most like dominant area that you can go into where nobody can get back like behind you. So when I'm in like an event of any description where you sit down, I am mindful to sit furthest away from the door and where nobody's going to go behind. There we go. Look at that.
Approved.
And what's on the inside there? Is that to keep them in shape as well? Oh, extra brownie points. Hey, look, there we go. That's marriage material, okay? That over there, he is someone you want to go into business with.
Oh, we could have another whole conversation about that, but
but you prove my point. So yeah, how to be the most powerful person in that room. Be as far away from the door as possible. Have your back as far like close to a wall or whatever it is, because without anybody even knowing what I'm doing, that is the most powerful place in the room. Your wrists are so important. For me, even if I've got a long sleeve thing on, I will pull it up. Most of my clothing will have 3/4 sleeves, because your wrists are not just about honesty when your palms are up, etc., but you could say it's flirting. So I'm sure we can all think about kind of the whole persona of a woman flicking her hair like whatever it is, and that's the flirting. Or it used to be when smoking was fashionable, it'd be kind of like as in like this, but it's not the smoking. If you look, it's just the wrist, it's the action. And that, when I was in that room, when I got the guy at the front to pay attention to me, was about my wrists. It was about my wrists. It was about what I was doing. Eye contact, obviously, is another huge thing. And I don't know if anyone else feels really awkward with eye contact sometimes. Like, it just gets a bit heavy. But obviously, it's a massive kind of sign of respect and everything else. And I was once taught that if you can look at somebody like literally here, between the eyes, and you can look into that place, there is no awkwardness, and you can hold that gaze for a whole lot longer. So when you're kind of really feeling under pressure, and if you want someone's attention, so when you're networking and you've clocked whoever it is that you want to speak to, beeline them, make that eye contact. And if you feel really awkward, look there instead, because you look like you're actually looking at them, but you're not actually looking, if that makes sense. It takes away that kind of edge. So yeah, all in the wrist. So when you're flirting, or when you're being honest, or when you're wanting attention, or whatever else, it's all in the wrists, basically. And another thing is about feet. So when you're networking, a lot of the times you're stood up, and you won't notice, but your feet move. So it's very hard to do this over Zoom, but I'm going to give it a go. So when you're stood talking to somebody, you are mirroring them. Subconsciously, you're going to be doing kind of similar actions. So if, for example, I was to take a sip of this, subconsciously, if any of you have got a drink in front of you, you'd probably find that you then went for a sip of your drink. And now you're thinking about it, you probably will, because you'll feel like, oh, do I need to have a drink? But you'll mirror them. So again, in a dating kind of way, if you want the man to think that you're really interested in him, copy him. Obviously not like awkwardly, because that's just weird, but you can literally copy people, mirror them. I've went into a job interview, I've mirrored the man who's interviewing me. I've done all of these different techniques, had my wrists out and all the different stuff, made the eye contact, and nailed the interview, because I'm using it, body language, to my benefit. And so where was I going with that, brain? Drinking, corporate, mirroring, feet, that was it. So if you're stood talking to someone, so Albert, let's just say you were in front of me, we were having a conversation, naturally our bodies would be pointing at each other, and our feet would actually be probably pointing at each other like this. Now let's say Chris walks in the door, or Keely or whoever, you might then actually turn one of your feet to the point of interest because all of a sudden that's captured your attention. So when you're in a networking event, if you look around the room and look at people's feet, you can see where actually their attention has been diverted. And so you can gauge kind of, I suppose, in a dating perspective, if a man's interested or whatever else, because their feet are pointing at you. But you can do that in business with the sense of the person's foot is going to naturally point to where you are. So it's another way that you can kind of pick up and read on people and their body language. So I don't know if that's enough. I'm really mindful of time, but yeah, it's just a topic I love. And if you can just work on it, and I did bring this with me in my suitcase. I'm happy to stick the link in, but
Ooh.
Body Language by Alan Pease. It's like £3 on eBay and it's proper old school. Oh, look, there you go. I don't know if you'll be able to see it.
Yeah, I love that.
It's proper old school, but there's some beautiful tips in that one. And that was what got me started on the body language journey.
Oh, so
And
Keely, like
yes,
being a personal brand photographer, sometimes I get people who, like being in front of the camera, it's like, oh my God, what do I do? And so, it's so the personal brand is about helping them to show that they are confident in what they offer. They are the experts in their field. What kind of tip could you give them to help them with their body language so that their body language can translate the fact that they can be trusted?
Ooh, good question. And I think that's probably a hard one to convey onto camera. And I think maybe that would fall into you and your kind of responsibility because they put their trust in you. And I know because we've worked together, getting me to walk down the middle of a busy road in London, like in an aisle between passing, bustling buses and cars and whatever else was like, what am I doing? There are a million eyeballs on me right now. And I was mortified.
It didn't
So I
show.
can honestly, I was. And I can honestly say that it was your skills for what you do that put me at ease. It wasn't my body language.
Oh,
You made me comfortable. And I bought into you and trusted you in that process. And the way you lead people when you do a shoot is what works so well.
so I need to be more aware of my body language so then I can inspire my clients to show their, to be themselves and, express themselves with their body language. So
I think your unique selling point would be owning the narrative that it is uncomfortable, that it is hideous, that it is everything you're expecting it to be. But you're with you, you are the safety, you are the security, you naturally own it anyway. And it's like look into the camera. So for them, if they feel a bit awkward looking into the camera, again, if you were to say, look at here on me, you're going to get the shoot you need because that's what I was doing. I wasn't looking at the camera. I was looking right there on your head because I was like, oh God, this is awkward. So that tip alone will probably take some pressure off them feeling like they're looking down the lens of a camera.
Yeah, I like that one. I really like that. I've got a lot more questions, but is there anyone who would like to ask Keely a question? I feel like Chris is probably going to be our first one to ask a question. Now you've got the shoe out.
Well, apart from the disgracefully sexist statements about what makes a man marriageable material, and I'd love to take that conversation up. Apart from that, which is another conversation, Lisa's going, Chris, don't start. No, I'm fascinated about if you have any particular thoughts about body language within the online space.
I think it's also a bit harder to kind of portray, isn't it? It's harder because you're within like this bubble, for example. And it's like, even when I'm explaining to you about, the bottom half, but again, I would say this is so important and key. And for me, don't take this the wrong way, but not being a woman and having fascinated in your hair, I would say what is the standout statement for you today is the fact that you've got big headphones on. Sure. That is your statement. So, you know, portraying your body language is, it's not necessarily what you've said or the fact you've shown me shiny shoes, it's the fact you've got the headset. And if you can have your wrists out, and I am quite animated, and it's not always very natural to be as maybe flamboyant with my hands or whatever, but, you know, kind of even the leaning in, this is thinking, this is listening, the leaning in is like, I'm really engaged. So actually being quite close up to the camera and listening, that person knows that you're all in. They know that, like, I have your focus and I am absolutely intrigued and engaged in what's going on. And even if it is just like this and you're leaning in and listening, the wrists are on show.
No.
I'll never see wrists the same way.
Yeah.
One thing I've got as well, which helps me, is that I can always make sure I'm center of my camera. So I've got this fancy software that if I do this, it follows me.
I did notice.
Cool.
I didn't know it was software, but I noticed.
Brilliant.
I don't have a cameraman, I promise.
Anyone else wanted to ask Keely a question? Wendy?
Trying to think.
You're on mute.
Oh, I can't hear you, darling.
Hang on.
That's it.
So how do you feel less subconscious in front of a group, apart from just looking at people? Like sometimes when I'm speaking, I'm conscious of my voice and it makes me think, like you, I can go off tangent as well and be quite animated. So how do you sort of focus yourself and feel like less conscious of, oh my God, I don't like my voice. Oh my God, everyone's looking at me. What would be your tips for that?
Find something that you can look at. Again, you don't want to be looking down or anything else because that's not confident. You want to be, you know, standing up. So if you can, I don't know, if there's a clock at the back of the room or something that you can like look at, so it doesn't feel like you're ignoring the audience, but you're not also seeing the audience. And then with kind of the, what was the first part of the question? The tone of your voice. I think that's, it's about priming yourself. It's about probably focusing on some breath work. And I'm not like massive on it, but what I will do is completely just bring myself down a little bit, really hold my breath and breathe out really slowly, because it's going to force your body to like slow down. And another tip, especially like when you stood up, if you're not at a desk or something, if you tap your feet just very gently, like you wouldn't see it, you could just move your toes, but alternate, you're changing the brain waves and you're literally in your brain that will calm your body down and your like reactive system. So I've stood in a court and give evidence before, and I'd just been like tapping my feet underneath, like, just God, calm down, like this is horrific. And that really helped me.
Okay, thank you. It's helpful.
And so Keely, tell us about Stephen Bartlett. What was his body language like?
I think I went in a bit like a bulldozer. Yeah, okay, two things. I'll make it very quick. First one, anybody that wants to kind of jump in the DMs, come find me, whatever. I've created like a 37-minute masterclass called Colourful Conversations. And that talks about, it talks about the different language. So I've put it into 4 personalities, and I've broken down those 4 personalities and then how that will help you when you're having conversations to identify how to find their hot buttons. So it would probably cement everything that I've kind of talked about today and just help with that further identification of people and how they might react and their body language, etc. It also says on there, which I thought was on my slides, that your body language, basically owning your body language, can make you 10 times more confident to other people, knowing and understanding your body language, literally 10 times. So that is theirs. By all means, jump into a DM somewhere. I'll send you the link. No problem at all. And Stephen Bartlett, I think I just had unwavering belief in myself, which I don't think I've ever had to the degree I had yesterday, On the drive up here to Liverpool from Devon, I was in the car, I phoned my husband and I said, I literally don't even know what the show's about. I don't care what anything's about, because all I am doing is going there to get this video. That was the only thought I had in my head. He's going to create this video. It's going to have a huge impact to the young people that hear it. And that's what I was going for. Like, there was no other choices. And he said, well, what if he doesn't do it? And I was like, well, he will. I was like, he's got no choice. and so I went in and I had a photo with him and I felt my hand go down towards his bottom. I was like, oh, I was like, my hand's far too close to your bum. He's like, you wouldn't be the first. So yeah, just kind of the whole thing was amazing. And I give him a gift. Again, another tip. If you can gift somebody something, they psychologically are more inclined to give you something back. So when I used to have face-to-face customers in my sales, I used to give them biscuits. Because it broke the ice, I gifted them something. They were more inclined to give something back. And yesterday I gifted Stephen Bartlett a golden envelope with my pitch and business card in, just in case I didn't get what I want. It was like take two opportunity. And I said to his team, I was like, look, I don't mean to be like bizarre and whatever, but I'm being filmed for a documentary and I'd love this footage to go into it. Would you be happy to do like the behind the scenes? And she was like, well, yeah, it's my job. So she's like the head of marketing for Stephen Bartlett and the Diary of a CEO. And she filmed the whole thing. So as for body language, I will be able to update you on that because I've not watched the video back, but I'll be able to see it all from a whole different perspective. But yeah, I think, you just have to sometimes put yourself out there. And I just knew it was more about how I carried myself. It was more about having that preparation there. I absolutely had my wrists out, and I knew that my big toe was my statement piece.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So inspiring. I mean, I know when I started networking, for example, so that was before I was a personal brand photographer. And I mean, Lisa met me there. I know that my body language was totally different. I know that being in that room, I was probably, at the back trying to hide, they want to, not wanting to be visible. And that's now I realize that I was totally missing the point because I wanted my business to be successful, but oh no, I can't possibly be in front of the camera, being front stage. And all those tips that you've given us are so key, because at the end of the day, we start a business for a reason. It's because we believe in what we've got to give, in our expertise and all that. So why not own it and finding ways, even if it's not comfortable, finding ways to think about it and be like, right, well, this is key. If I want to grow, I need to get over myself. Yeah, and
It's easier said than done, though, isn't it? Sometimes.
Yeah, but it takes practice, doesn't it?
Yeah. And your statement piece are your earrings. And normally I've gone into a bit of a Pat Butcher era. Again, Chris, this isn't for you, but I've gone on to like Temu or whatever and just bought some quite flamboyant earrings. Because again, whilst you're on things like this on Zoom, you are hard to kind of stand out or whatever. But if I've got some massive like Pat Butcher style earrings that are like colourful or bright or like blingy or whatever, you're capturing that attention, and that's going to help you to kind of stand out from the crowd.
Brilliant. Lisa, did you want to add something? Oh, sorry.
I was just to say, can I ask something?
Yeah.
At the networking event where I met Keely and Albane, the three of us had a really nice conversation and, found some common ground and, et cetera, et cetera. Then I went off to my table, ended up sitting opposite this one lady, next to another one. And, I was chatting to the lady next to me. She looked about 12 and, she was lovely. We had a really lovely conversation. The lady opposite me, I started talking to her, asked her questions because, that's kind of my background, doing recruitment, trying to sort of meet people, get the best out of them, find out what interests them. Anyway, so potentially she probably thought, oh, I had a really nice conversation. There was no conversation. She did not ask me one single thing. Not even after, I'd sort of said the little précis about, when we had to introduce ourselves in the same way that, we did today. What could I have done differently? because I'm always really quite friendly and, chat to people and try and build relationships, blah, blah, blah. But she was a bit cold anyway, but we had quite a bit in common. So, the the lady who organised the event said, oh, you've got such in common, you blah, blah, blah. She was not interested whatsoever. So I just wondered what you would do in that situation.
What was it you wanted out of it, so to speak, other than a conversation, a mutual conversation? But was
it was more a mutual conversation. It's just, we go out for dinner sometimes, and my husband and I are very good at talking to people. But again, they haven't asked us a single question, and they're like going, well, okay, well, it was a bit boring almost, because we didn't talk about ourselves or about our families or anything. It was just us talking to them. So no, it's just more sort of interesting to hear everybody's opinion, not just necessarily yours.
Yeah, I think I probably, unless I was getting something, like a bit of a vibe, and depending on how long they went on for, I would probably like hijack the conversation into another direction. As in, oh my God, yes. Do you know what? I've got a friend and she does that because in my line of work, blah, blah, blah. And just like take the lead, because the person asking the questions is the one in control of the conversation and the one leading the way. So it's just about maybe trying to navigate it into how you can relate that into something about you to then kind of change and be a bit more in control of that conversation is probably the way I'd go about it.
I know that's useful. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Jojo, do you want to ask something?
No.
No, my mind's gone blank.
Say again?
I don't know, my mind has gone blank. Sorry.
Well, me and Jordan have had a conversation before, and I think like for Jordan and being in the university situation, kind of having that body language to, even if you don't feel confident, but to put yourself forward will bring so many more and new opportunities, kind of just being able to hold yourself differently, kind of even just the shoulders back and the smiling is going to invite more kind of conversation and things that you could do. So if there's situations going on where you want an internship, that you can be kind of introduced to somebody using some of the body language tips to, as my husband likes to say, fake it till you make it. That's kind of a big thing. Sometimes you might not feel it on the inside, but if you can hold your body in that way, kind of 60-70% of that whole body language is talking instead of what's coming out of here.
Cool. Thank you very much. And Lisa?
Yeah, I don't think I have any questions right now. They'll probably come to me later when I've had time to process it all a bit. But yeah, it's an interesting subject though, and I think especially when you're very customer facing, to know how to deal with it. But even Keely's thing about not getting back from people sometimes. Like networking events, I think that's quite a big thing sometimes. And then you just wonder why they've even bothered to go, because there's literally nothing. And that's kind of what it's all about. But I think, just having it mindful of how you can perhaps change that is useful. But there's so much about it in, all areas of life. But I think I will definitely touch base with you though, because I think there could be stuff that comes up from it that, could do a bit more on.
Excellent. So I think what would be great if every single one of you was to actually pay attention to your body language next time you enter a situation you feel like, oh my God, it's a bit, I feel a bit awkward. Think about what we've been talking about today. Think about the one thing that you would maybe not normally do, and message me or put it in the group and journal about it, talk about it, and see the difference. You before knowing about this and you being self-aware and actually doing something about it. Maybe Lisa, next time you meet up with your boss, or you know, maybe Kirsty, next time you get into a networking group and you engage with people, think about that and see how much of a, and I keep, it's the French way, how much of a difference it makes. Or as Jojo would know, my mother is very much like, so yeah, that was a bit of a revelation as well when you mentioned it. But I think if we all pay attention to it, that's when things start to shift, and that's when things happen our way a bit more, because we give ourselves the tools to express what we want, and that's how we grow, really.
It gave me the most confidence I've ever had, because it made me feel in power. It made me feel powerful. It made me feel like I was less likely to be rejected, whether that's in like a dating, networking, life, jobs, whatever. I felt so much more in control because I could just understand what they were thinking without them even verbalizing it. And then I'd be the one to stop that conversation. So going back, Kirsty, just very quickly, where you said about the lady opposite, if there was like a tea break or something else, I'd then be clocking her body language. And if her foot wasn't turned, or her body wasn't facing me, or her, you know what I mean, all the different body language stuff, just wouldn't even give her the time of day. I'd be like, off you go, miserable cow. Like, you know, just be like, whatever. Because sometimes, again, that's not your client. That's not your tribe. Don't waste your time, you know? So it's hard when you're sat or you're on a Zoom to pick that up. But then on a tea break or whatever, you can kind of put like a jigsaw together and kind of get a better understanding on whether that's going to work or not.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much. So
Sorry,
in the chat,
waffled on.
save the chat, guys. I've put the Keely's details in there. I forgot to put the Instagram, but yeah, you'll have Keely's LinkedIn and her website and her email address in there.
I think I've only got the Zoom thing through LinkedIn. Is there a chat or something?
Oh, I'll put you in the group, in the Facebook group as well then, Kirsty, if you're not in there.
Yes,
Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you, please.
And then please report what you notice. Do it as soon as, because the more you do it, the more you practice it, the easier it's going to be, and you're gonna love it. And I can't thank you enough, Keely, for the chat and for being so inspiring, and well done for meeting Stephen.
I know, yeah, like it was worth every single penny. And I just cried the whole first half of the show, just not like sobbing, but just constant tears just kept coming out my face. And I was just like, wow, this is a moment. This is a moment. So yeah.
You know what's going to be next then, darling? Next time, it's going to be him holding a pass with your picture on it, and he's going to come and see you to listen to you. Boom.
He's going to come and talk at one of my events. I'm going to hold an event, like a Tony Robbins style event, but for young people. And he will be my keynote speaker. And he will also be my mentor and ambassador for my business. So
brilliant.
I don't want much.
Can't wait. Well, I hope I'm going to be there to document that bit as well.
Yeah.
No
you
pressure.
Can come and do the behind the scenes.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so
everybody.
much for today.
Thank
you, Keely. And yeah, can't wait to hear how it all evolves. À bientôt.
Yeah, I know. A whirlwind.